And welcome back. Our next guest is a pastor, and he served 25 years in the state judicial system as the Arkansas State's trial and appellate judge. He joins us today to speak about his role as one of the 900 black Christian faith leaders calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, and to highlight how his latest book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith, relates to what's taking place in Gaza. So please welcome to the show the Reverend Wendell Griffen. Reverend, welcome.
Good morning, Dr. Bob. How are you?
Good, good. Now, you're a pastor. Tell us where it is, the name of the church and everything.
Thank you very much. I am in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I serve as pastor of New Millennium Church, which is an inclusive, organized Baptist, but we don't have Baptist in the name, church that we organized in 2009. We are interracial, we are welcoming and affirming, and we call ourselves unapologetic prophetic followers of Jesus.
Yes, beautiful. And you were a judge out there, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I spent 25 years as a trial and appellate court judge, spent 13 years as a judge on the Arkansas Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
And I spent 12 years as a circuit judge, a trial judge, handling civil and criminal cases, and retired at the end of December last year.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things going on in the world, and of course, a lot of people want to do things about it, and a lot of people are on the side of peace. And you're one of the 900 black Christian faith leaders calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. What can you tell us about this effort, and what is required to achieve this? What do we have to do? What do people have to do?
Thank you for asking that question. And Dr. Bob, thank you very much for letting me on your program so we can talk about the interconnection or the intersection of peace, justice, and faith. I was glad that some wonderfully prophetic people, led by my colleague, Reverend Pastor Michael McBride from Live Free, and black Christians, faith leaders in Palestine, calling for peacefire in Palestine. I've got the New York Times article in my home study. Asked us to get together and sign off on this because we were calling for a ceasefire weeks ago.
Yeah.
We are literally, Dr. Bob, watching genocide on live stream. We are watching. People are singing "Little Town of Bethlehem," and Bethlehem is not merry this year, and Gaza is not having a joyful Christmas. And we're watching this. One of the oldest Christian churches in the world, dating back to 4th century BC, 4th century CE, was bombed by the Israelis weeks ago. And so we've had hospitals, mosques, schools, refugee centers, doctors, ambulances, journalists, babies. I just became a grandfather, Dr. Bob, last weekend. And I held my granddaughter in my hands and thought of parents who had children my granddaughter's age bombed to death in the last week.
Yeah.
And so I really think about these things and worry how this faith situation we'd have can connect with these issues. It's important that we talk about it.
Yeah.
And we talk about it in my book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith.
Yeah. How can we bring people together? Because it's kind of getting out of hand. How can we bring people together? I'm on the side of peace, love, happiness, and reconciliation. How can we do this? Is it in your book? Is there a piece in the book where it is written that we can come together in harmony as Jesus would, as God would? He would want people to come together and live in harmony.
Yeah. And that's the great issue, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the great issue, because we are talking about the age-old question of our times. How can we be people who say we love God and act hateful toward one another? And how can we love one another, and accept the fact that we have the same kind of rights to life, even though we're different in various ways. I think that that kind of conversation is essentially a faith and justice issue, Dr. Bob, that has to require what I call prophetic citizenship. We have to be prophetic activism. We're all familiar with the notion of political citizenship, but we got to have prophetic faith. We've got to have a kind of faith that says, okay, I see the darkness, I see the hatred, I see the bitterness, I see the genocide, but do I see the humanity in the very people who are acting unkindly, unseemly, or in fact hatefully? And can I let my humanity show
Yeah.
and not let it be overcome by the hatefulness of others?
So where do we go from here with the faith leaders? Do we go to Congress? What are the next steps?
Faith leaders are doing, first of all, the important thing of going to the Biden administration. We got to remember that the Biden administration can actually impose a ceasefire because last week and 2 weeks ago, we cast vetoes. Our United States cast vetoes against humanitarian ceasefire. And that's terrible. That's terrible for me as a faith leader and as a person who spent his entire public life, adulthood, in public policy. How can we call ourselves leaders of democracy and peace and justice and actually oppose ceasefire
Yeah.
in the holiest time of the year? So we've got to call on the Biden administration. And that's something that all of us must do. Faith leaders, neighborhood leaders must say to our elected officials, call the president, call our members of Congress and say, this killing must stop. And the only way you stop a war is stop shooting at each other, stop bombing each other. You cannot bomb your way to peace.
Yeah.
It's sort of like saying, I'm going to stop arson by giving gasoline to arsonists. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Rev, let me go back to your book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. What can people learn from reading this book?
Yeah. First of all, about the interconnection of faith and justice. That everything we see in our public policy lives has faith implications, and everything about our faith ought to inform our notions of public policy so that we are becoming a more just, a more loving, more inclusive, and more grace-filled people. I mean, if I could impart anything to the audience of Open, is we must be people who understand that loving one's neighbor is good government. Whether you're talking about domestic policy or global policy. And doing good in the best sense of being faithful and righteous is not only good government, it is the only good religion.
Reverend, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're always welcome back. Reverend Wendell Griffen, pastor and author, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me come on, and God bless you and the work you're doing on Bronx Next. You're doing a good job, brother, and I'm following you, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We've got some more Open coming up next.